We are on chapter 15, so let's explore more of Jamestown. Up on the deck, they ran into a tour group moving down a narrow set of steps into the belly of the ship. A woman was leading them, calling out various facts as they walked. Let's follow them, said Derek. I want to see what's down there. They waited their turn, then carefully stepped down the steep ladder-like boards. Sam looked around the cramped quarters inside the ship. The ceiling was low. The room was filled with barrels and crates. Short, cot-like beds were scattered along the walls. He imagined trying to sleep inside the ship for a night. Did travelers back then get seasick? Months at a time stuck on a boat crossing the ocean must have been terrible. Sailors tracked the speed of the ship using a unit of measurement called knots, the tour guide was saying to the people huddled around her. Knots? Asked one of the kids in the tour. What's that? Sam noticed the leader's name tag. He nudged Caitlin. Look, it's Jada. Cool, let's listen, she replied. A knot is a measurement of speed on the water, Jada explained. That's a weird name, muttered Derek. A knot is what I get in my shoelaces. Jada must have heard him since she smiled in his direction. It might seem like an odd name, my friend, but if you know the context, it makes complete sense. Sam's teachers were always talking about the context in school. He wondered if Jada used to be a teacher, or maybe she still was, when she wasn't giving tours. He leaned around the man standing in front of him to see Jada holding a wooden board about the size of a ping pong paddle. The crew on the Susan Constant, like other sailors of the early 1600s, used a device like this one. What's that? Someone else asked. It's called a log line. Jada held it higher to reveal how it was connected to a rope with markings on it. While the ship was moving, a sailor would throw the wooden board into the water. He would count the length of the rope that fed out into the water as the ship moved by the number of actual knots in the rope that passed through his hands. An hourglass was used as a timer. So, for example, if 10 knots of the rope went into the water, the ship was said to be traveling at a speed of 10 knots. Wow, said Sam. He heard people talk about a boat going a certain number of knots, but he never knew that that's what it meant. That's not what I expected, Derek laughed at his long, lame joke. When Jada dismissed the tour group to explore the rest of the ship, Caitlin walked up and introduced herself. Well, hello, said Jada pleasantly. I'm glad you found me. What do you think of the ship? It's fascinating, Caitlin said. Pretty cramped, though, said Sam. Yes, it is. But if you wanted to get across the Atlantic back in the 1600s, this was the best method of transportation that you had. I'm glad I didn't live back then, Sam replied. Me too, Jada laughed. How about we go over to the deck and get some fresh air? Sounds good, said Sam, feeling a bit claustrophobic down below. The professor said you have an assignment for us, asked Caitlin once they were back up in the sunlight. She seemed a little overeager as far as Sam was concerned. He wanted to know what they were there to do, but it seemed like Caitlin was back at school, ready to write down everything the teacher said. She loosened up a lot from when they first met in 3rd grade, but she still loved to learn and be the best at things. I do have an assignment for you, Jada replied. She winked at them. You think you're up to it? Absolutely, said Caitlin. It depends on what the assignment is, I guess, said Sam. Caitlin frowned at Sam's response. I'm pretty sure you need Sam to clean the toilets, is that right? Said Derek. Sam shot him a glare. No, we wouldn't make y'all do that, Jada chuckled, her hands on her hips. Well, you've seen how I lead tour groups like the one on the ship. We also have a lot of children's programs. One of the favorite things is our colonial play, in which we just so happen to have several key roles open today. A play? Asked Sam, his eyes opening wide. Like in a theater? Jada nodded. Sort of, just not in the actual theater. We put it on outside here, near the Indian village. Today, we're missing the 3 lead actors for our Pocahontas play. Derek grinned. Sam would be perfect for Pocahontas. Sam slugged his brother in the arm. Shut up, will you? Jada shook her head. Now, I think Caitlin might be a better Pocahontas. What do you think? Caitlin's eyes lit up. Oh, that sounds like so much fun. Derek, do you feel like being Captain John Smith? Asked Jada. Do I get to carry a sword? Jada laughed. Yes, but not a real one. Okay, I can do that. He pretended to slash the air with his arm. Captain Smith is believed to have befriended a young Pocahontas in the first year at Jamestown, explained Jada. She helped him with her people's language, food, and establishing trade. Smith was a terrific leader and explorer, but he was injured in a gunpowder explosion before their second winter and soon left the colony for England, never to return to Virginia. What about me? Asked Sam uncertainly. It seemed like Pocahontas and Captain John Smith were the two main parts. Maybe that was for the best. Derek pretended like he was on stage most of the time anyhow, and Sam had never been overly confident in front of a large group of people. Sam, Jada replied, I think you'd make a great John Rolfe. What do you think? He looked at her suspiciously. What does John Rolfe do? Well, John Rolfe was an important settler at Jamestown, and he had a lot to do with the establishment of the colony. He was a tobacco planter and businessman. After narrowly surviving a shipwreck in Bermuda, he came to Jamestown with a supply of ships that saved the colony from starvation. That sounded pretty cool. He didn't mind being the guy who started a business and helped save the settlers. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. I guess I could do that. But, continued Jada, he's most famously known for what happened in the first Jamestown church. You probably saw where it's been excavated inside the fort on the island. Oh, yeah, said Sam. That's what the X stands for on the map of the fort. He wanted to get one of those hats like Toby had, with the fort drawing in the middle. What happened at the church? Asked Caitlin. Several years after Captain Smith returned to England, Pocahontas was kidnapped by English settlers and held for ransom. Kidnapped? Asked Caitlin. Poor girl. Jada nodded. She ended up staying with the colonists, converting to Christianity and changing her name to Rebecca. So what does all this have to do with John Rolfe? Asked Sam, trying to follow along. I'm getting there, said Jada. John Rolfe had lost his wife and child during the time in Bermuda. A year after Pocahontas' baptism, she and John Rolfe were married. That's the highlight of our play today. Derek burst out laughing and pointing at Sam's face. Sam and Caitlin have to get married! Sam felt his face grow bright red. Caitlin waved Derek away and looked down at the ground. Don't listen to him, Sam. It's just a play. Sam put his hand over his face. He knew that this was going to be a bad idea. Oh, come on now, you guys, chided Jada. Keep it together. The play is short and the kids will really enjoy it. She motioned toward the museum. Doc told me you three were used to challenges, no? Well, think of this as a new kind of adventure. She turned to lead the ship. Come on, let's go get your costumes. Costumes? Moaned Sam, starting to feel ill. Well, of course, said Jada. You can't have a historical play without costumes, now can you? Sam shook his head as he followed behind them to the museum. This is going to be a disaster. That is the end of chapter 15. So, Sam and Caitlin are going to be in a play. He's going to be John Rolfe. She's going to be Pocahontas. So, Derek is probably not going to let him hear the end of that for quite a while. So, we will see how the play actually goes, whether it's a disaster or it's not a disaster in chapter 16. And I will see you then.